Hello and welcome to the launch of Biomes. Thank you very much for joining us. We're so excited to have you here. Let me introduce Rob Russell, the CEO of the Awabakal Local Aboriginal Land Council. He has generously agreed to do the acknowledgement of country. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you very much. As an Aboriginal man, a Gomeroi descendant from the Namoi River country around Gunnedah and Boggabri, I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land of Newcastle, the ancient Awabakal people. I acknowledge them as the traditional custodians of the land and pay my respects to their elders, both past and present, and pay my respects to young Aboriginal people as the elders of the future, as our emerging leaders. I pay my respects to the Awabakal people as the first peoples of this land, and I acknowledge the loss of lands, culture and treasures, and the consequences this loss has delivered to our people, our communities and our nations. But I also believe that we can walk together to a better future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. Biomes, your place on the planet. Welcome to our virtual art science exhibition. My name is Alex Callan. I'm a conservation scientist with the University of Newcastle. It has been my great privilege over the last 12 months to work with a fantastic team of dreamers, of doers, of dedicated professionals who have brought our biodiversity to life. This is an art science exhibition that is supposed to build the wonder and natural beauty of our world into your homes, into your life. It's taken us a long time. I hope you enjoy what you see. Biomes will actually be live on the website for the whole month of September to celebrate National Biodiversity Month. But why did we use art as the way of starting to communicate about the need for further biodiversity conservation on our planet? Art is a very, very powerful medium, especially when you've got really visually engaging assets to pique the interest of curious minds. And we have all of that in the natural world. But these assets are declining daily, and we've known this for quite some time. At about the turn of the century, 50% of our anti-cancer drugs were either derived from the natural environment or inspired by the knowledge that we have about the natural environment. Humanity's survival is then inextricably linked to our biodiversity. As scientists, we spend a lot of time talking to other scientists about facts like that, and sometimes we forget that other people don't know them, or we think that other people don't find them as interesting as we do. And that's where communication as the vehicle for change breaks down on the highway and the Extinction Party bus goes racing by. It is time for us to learn to communicate better, and we'd like to do that through art, because art holds the stories. Art is what connects people back to nature, connects people back to caring. That is what we're hoping to do with Biomes. We want to capture the wonder of our natural world through art to amaze people, to inspire people, to have people caring about our countries again. We're fortunate today to have the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Research and Innovation, Professor Janet Nelson, to provide our opening address. And we'll also have Darren McKenney, the Founding Director of Miramar Language and Technology Centre, to provide our guest presentation. Both of these people see biodiversity conservation through a different lens, and we need to bring all these disciplines and perspectives together in order to create change. Scientists can't create change alone. In fact, they can barely create change at all. It takes all of us to create the change to improve outcomes for our biodiversity. You'll also hear from our Biomes curatorial team today. They're very eager to show you some of the work, to actually discuss the transition that we've experienced from a physical exhibition into an online environment. And this is seminal work that might somehow influence the future of art science exhibitions in a COVID world. As many of you are aware, Biomes is lucky enough to be part of Ars Electronica's global online festival this year in Kepler's Gardens. And later on, there'll be some, we'll zoom to Professor Horst Hortner Director of the Future Lab for Ars Electronica, and he will talk with Dr. Kristofan Minsky and the Head of School of Creative Industries, Professor Paul Eggleston, to discuss the blending of these two exhibitions in this exciting online environment. Biomes is now in the online environment, but we're using our social media platforms to try and engage with our community to get back out into the bush. We've done this by creating something called Habitat Hunters in collaboration with industry partners and government practitioners. We've come together with scientists to actually provide a platform to get people out using citizen science to look at our beautiful wetlands, our beautiful bushlands, our woodlands and our rainforests. And we hope that will reignite a passion in people about biodiversity conservation. And of course, none of this is possible without financial support. We're very grateful to our major sponsors, Hunter and Central Coast Development Corporation and Horizon, and some of the other sponsors that you'll see listed behind me. Hunter Region Landcare Network, Fast Lab, the Centre for Brain and Mental Health Research, Hunter Innovation and Science Hub, Tito Creative, and the Department of Planning, Infrastructure and Environment. Without them, Biomes would not be possible. Similarly, it wouldn't be possible without the team of incredible professionals that we have had working with us. Our artists, our scientists, our producers, our promoters, our practitioners. Without them, we wouldn't have this voice for biodiversity in Biomes. So I say a big thank you to everyone on behalf of the Biomes curatorial team. I hope you enjoy the launch. I hope you enjoy the exhibition. And a reminder to feel free to join us at 7 p.m. on Zoom for an after-party celebration where you can actually talk to the artists and scientists and listen to them talk about some of their pieces in our virtual gallery. You should see that link in the Zoom in the Q&A section of your screen, or alternatively, it's on your original invitation. I'd now like to welcome Dr. Michelle Kelly from the School of Psychology.
Thank you, Alex. Good evening, everyone. So Biomes to me is a beautiful culmination of science and art, targeting one of the big issues facing our society today. The topic of biodiversity is one close to the hearts of many Australians, even more so over the course of what we have witnessed in Australia recently, but also in Brazil and California, with bush and forest fires. On this level, these losses are not ours alone, but are shared globally. It is these big issues that face our communities that make rare collaborations like the one here crucial. This collaboration has brought together ecologists to understand the science, psychologists to understand the role of people in both the problem and in the solution, and artists, technicians, and user design specialists to communicate the science in a beautiful, creative, and palatable way. It is these collaborations that will allow us to make a difference in this world, finding solutions for the big issues we face. While this topic is close to my heart, what brings me to this project is my passion for communicating science through art and art through science. Tackling the big issues facing the world requires a depth of understanding that each of us alone do not have, and a depth of understanding that is not possible to achieve within one discipline alone. Art science exhibitions not only allow us to tackle the big issues, they allow us to engage with community on common goals. They allow us to share resources and knowledge, at the same time promoting tolerance through challenging each and every one of us at the core of our values. They challenge us to value and respect what each of us can bring to the collaboration. In 2019, we curated the first University of Newcastle science-led art science exhibition called Brain. This exhibition brought together the disciplines of psychology, medicine, neuroscience, animation, architecture, music, illustration, computer engineering, and photography to explore the brain and mental health. In addition to collaborations with the university, we worked together with the lived experience and expertise of the public in the development and the delivery of the exhibition. With high school students, alumni, and community groups, such as the Men's Shed, forming an essential part of the design team. Biomes has gone one step further, bringing together a dynamic and dedicated team of researchers, industry, and local government groups. I would now like to check that we have Professor Janet Nelson on the call. I'm due to introduce her now, but we'll just check if she's here with us. Professor Nelson, are you with us? No. Okay, I've just got a message on the chat to say that she is with us. Okay, so I'll continue. So that is why we are absolutely delighted to have Professor Janet Nelson, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Research and Innovation, joining us tonight. So Professor Nelson was interviewed about her first 100 days at the university, and she stated, "It has never been more evident that there is no single field, industry or sector that alone can deliver the creative, out-of-the-square thinking needed to address the global challenges we face. We need our researchers to work across disciplines with industry partners and with policymakers and legislators to create and deliver the right solutions." So we believe that it is community engagement projects like BRAIN and Biomes that will address the identified priority areas by directly connecting our university to the community to tackle the big issues together. I would now like to invite Professor Nelson to officially open the Biomes exhibition.
Okay, so we just seem to be having a couple of technical issues there. So while we're waiting for Professor Nelson to sort of come on board, I think I might like to, I'll introduce myself, and I'm Bernadette Drabsch from the School of Creative Industries, and I'm one of the curators of this fantastic exhibition called Biomes. I would like to say a huge thank you to the Biomes working team. Thanks to Simone O'Callaghan for undertaking the mammoth task of moving all of our content onto a website. To Michelle from Psychology, who you just heard from, for being our scientific communication lead, mentor, and unofficial counsellor. To Alex for being the most hardworking and inspirational leader I've ever had the pleasure to work with. To Luke, the creator of the virtual gallery, for being incredibly talented and very patient. To all of the artists who have produced some stunning art pieces. To Christophe for introducing us to Ars Electronica and a whole new international audience. And finally, to my head of school, Professor Paul Eggleston, for allowing us to transfer our art science exhibition across to the prototype virtual gallery that was being created by FastLab for Festival X. Without this amazing platform, Biomes would have been yet another 2020 COVID cancellation. Biomes is a collaboration between students and staff from the Faculty of Science and the Faculty of Education and Arts and many external partners. Like all complex collaborations, it's had its challenges with different agendas, personalities and deliverables all thrown into the mix. The original Biomes was going to be a small interactive exhibition at the Newcastle Museum, and then COVID closed the museum in March. We then redesigned it to a walking trail exhibition based along the Newcastle foreshore, but our budget didn't quite cover that one. We then redesigned it as an exhibition at the station, which was when one of our very talented artists, PhD candidate Louisa, introduced us to another talented PhD candidate, Christophe, and then Biomes evolved once again into an Ars Electronica festival garden. In August, the second wave of COVID hit Newcastle, and version 4 also got cancelled. With very limited time before the opening, we made a huge decision to make everything virtual. And as a result of many, many sleepless nights, we've finally made it here tonight, and thank goodness. To me, Biomes is an opportunity to give back and to make a difference. As an academic and natural history illustrator, I love to tell stories. And in this case, the stories couldn't be more important. Biomes is a story of wonderment and the beauty of nature. It's a wake-up story, one that makes us stop and take stock of the damage we are doing. It is a personal story of engagement, focusing on the things we, or I, can do differently. It is a story of hope, for the future of biodiversity. According to the University of Newcastle's Professor Michael Marnie, the Hunter Valley has one of the worst records of biodiversity loss in Australia due to excessive clearing for agriculture and mining. The question now is how to protect the plants and animals that still remain in this region. Data from the New South Wales Government Who Cares About the Environment survey indicated that only 1/3 of the responders knew what the term biodiversity meant. It's clear that the traditional methods of science communication in this area have struggled to make significant impacts in terms of positive behavioural action. The key difference in our approach will be the inclusion of art. Art, in its broadest sense, has the extraordinary power to enthrall, provoke, rouse in-depth discussion, inspire, educate, or act as a catalyst for social correction and behavioural change. It can provide a bridge between the different fields within academia and forge a connection with the community. Through the application of a non-traditional research approach, Biomes will address some of the most significant issues relating to biodiversity conservation in the Hunter Valley. I feel very privileged to have grown up in such a beautiful area, and I want to help open up meaningful and respectful discussions about what we can do differently. We need to talk about conservation economics and explore questions around how we can have a prosperous economy and still protect our environment. Can it be done without more land clearing? I believe so. We need to start thinking about how it can be done. We need to start working together, artists, scientists, miners and farmers, developers, academics, landholders, activists, sociologists, and the community and government bodies to reframe the future of the Hunter Valley. As we've learned through this experience, worthwhile collaborations can be difficult to negotiate, but they are not impossible. Our goal is to make an impact on an individual level, but also at a policy-making level, adjusting the lens through which our land and its unique flora and fauna are viewed, so that our biome has a brighter future. Thank you very much. And I hope that Janet is now with us. If not, then I'll pass it over to you, Alex, back in the studio.
I'd like to introduce Darren McKenny. He's our guest speaker for Biomes launch. Darren is the founding director of Miramar Language and Technology Centre. The centre supports the rediscovery of Indigenous language across Australia and across the globe. And more broadly, he promotes the role of country in influencing Indigenous language. And this creates a connection between people and place and the power this can have in caring for country. Darren is involved in a number of fascinating conservation projects, particularly around animal communication. Thanks, Darren.
Pairira barang, birubinumba, parawanka, yay wikalang, pirikakalang, kaukawamaya, waimbang parai, virtually a wabakolba. This means from the land of Birubin, the eagle hawk, from as far as his eyes can see to the deep flow of the river, I too welcome you virtually to a Wabakal country. So to get me started for my talk with you this evening, I'd like to show a video which will give you some type of context, which is why I'm involved in this and why we are doing this ourselves as well. And it's realizing for us what the importance of language is and why someone from this language world is speaking to you now. So I'd like to ask for the video to be presented to you now.
Hey guys. Hey guys. Hello. Turn your little eye up to look at us. Go ahead.
Who's got a phone? Because I can't get a picture of her like this.
She's been on camera. Oh, well, he just put his head up right here.
Yeah.
It's in here. I know. I know.
That is a close approach.
Bloody hell.
I hope virtually you got to experience something then. For me, I had an opportunity a couple of years ago to work with some marine biologists on our East Coast here, and their work was all sorts of facets of studying the humpback whale, and through that video is an experience which I've now evolved through to myself, is working with them, and I go up there and I take my recorders, my cameras, and I have hydrophones underwater, and I'm recording their song, their conversation. But what you heard then was a mother and a child. That child was possibly, we think, maybe just 2 to 3 weeks old. And that mum, here we were on the boat researching them, but I think what we realized later is that we were the ones being researched. We have one of our oldest creatures, our oldest speakers, with its child, bringing her or him to us in the boat and introducing them to that. I don't know how many animals in the animal kingdom, in the wildlife world, they actually would do that to that type of extent. And I think it's something which we have to realize is that we're actually not the experts of doing all of this. We're actually living in their land and living in their environment, and it's us that have taken all of this away from them. We are part of that as an Indigenous fella, as an Aboriginal fella, as a Gomeroi man. We are part of that, having experienced that loss, no different to what they are. And what I'm looking for and trying to do is to help give them the voice for them to be heard in all sorts of different ways. And it's something which our old people have been doing. Our old people have been listening to the whales for hundreds and possibly thousands of years off the coast here of Newcastle, hearing them when they were in their big numbers, traveling north, traveling south, and hearing them speak and hearing them sing and bringing that ashore and sharing that knowledge itself as well. So I think what I'm trying to give with that there is that, like I said, maybe we're not the experts in the research. It's them that possibly are. And I don't really know whether we're doing the good job yet, which they're asking for. I think they know they need more from us. Australia, this east coast of Australia here, we've just suffered, our environment has just suffered one of the biggest disasters possibly in this history of 250 years, with the fires which have just swept through and just destroyed so much. Luckily, after the first rains come, we've got pockets of those there coming back to life. And we've got some animals which have survived and that there. But for me, it's that I work in the language field. And I've been doing that now for 20 years. And it took a long time to realize that it's actually not the language field that I'm working in. It's actually the knowledge field. It's just that we use language to get to the knowledge, which is what we're seeking, to be back in that first position, which we should be, that primary position, which should be as the original scientists, studiers, understanders, carers for this country here. Whether it's out the doorstep and up at the harbour, over at the cliffs, along the river, over in our lake, our mountains, our valleys, our creeks, all of this, everything from what's below the surface to the stars, our people have the knowledge and have created some of the oldest knowledge systems in existence. It's something I've recently been saying, and I don't get worried when I say this, okay? But yes, this is the year 2020 for some. For us, This is the year 65,020. Our knowledge systems date back, can date back that far. That's what we bring to this. And we've had an ability to be listening to our animals, listening to our plants, our trees, listening to the wind, listening to the water, listening to the environment. And the thing is that we listen in a way which has allowed us to care and learn from and to do this. And that's what I've been so excited about is actually finally understanding that it's not the language world which I'm working in, it's the knowledge world. And that's what's amazing. But what I'd like to do is go from that a bit and maybe have a little bit of fun and give you some other, a little bit of information which I've collected up my sleeve. And I sort of wonder what part do we play, or actually how valuable our knowledge system is. Because look, I'll tell you, and it's not, this is not me saying this is me listening to our other people who are saying this, is that we're not listened to enough. Our people are not listened to enough in all sorts of areas for caring for this place, but we want you to. And I'll give you an example. So everyone knows the word kangaroo. We all know about the kangaroo. We all know it's that weird hopping creature. But I don't know if you know that, where did that word come from? And what does that word actually mean? Yeah, it was first recorded by Lieutenant Cook up in Gugimitha country on Cape York there. The place eventually became known as Cooktown on the Endeavour River there. He recorded 150 words of the Gugimitha language, and one of those words was kangaroo. How we say it, kangaroo, but should be pronounced kangaroo. And anyway, Joseph Banks, I think, brought that word and the other 149 words back down to Sydney and told everyone, this is your master vocabulary. And in that is the names of our animals, and there was names of plants, species. I've only just started to use that word in the last 12 months, species. But this word, kangaroo, its meaning is not what you think it is. It's far deeper and far more complex than what we've all realized, than what we've known. Because if you were to ask a Gugimitha person, you ask someone from Newcastle, you ask someone from Sydney, you ask someone, oh, what's a kangaroo? Oh, that thing that does that. And we don't actually, oh, what's your name? Newcastle here, or Wabaka, we call it Mawani. What is Mawani? Kangaroo. Nah, that's what we're learning. We got it all wrong. Because this word itself, Gugimitha will say that, or will tell you that gungaroo translates to old man eastern grey. Old man eastern grey. Not the female, not the young, not the middle-aged, not that all the other species which we have in the macropod world there. The depth of that meaning of that word is just one tip of the iceberg of the depth of the knowledge which exists within all of our languages, everywhere about our plants. You know, you will go to the newsagents, okay, right at the moment. Go get, unless you get it, you subscribe, get the latest National Geo. I'm not going to tell you what page it's on, but there's a paragraph in there which will tell you just last year, a plant species was determined to have an ability to further advance modern medicine just in the last 12 months. Now, Western scientists never ever got there, and no one could ever tell them anything until they actually spoke with the traditional owners and allowed them to give that knowledge to that person through their language. Because as soon as they were to translate it into English, all that knowledge system got filtered out. And that's what's been happening to us. And with what I'm saying is that within our languages is knowledge systems which we still haven't, which we've been losing, but we need to bring back as one of the most valuable assets to help us continue to care for this country, to learn possibly what's been lost, to relearn what is sitting there. And it's all of that there, which why I will actually not stop and look at the whales and go, is it going to breach? Why is it going to breach? I want to see it breach. No, I don't. I want to stick my head underwater. I'm not going to do that all the time, but I'm going to put my hydrophone underwater because I want to hear our animals speak, because they have got something to tell us, and that's what we need to do more. But when we do hear their voice and give them the opportunity to hear their voice, you know, we will start to listen and we will start to all care together. So that's one of my little stories, and you know, I thank you all for the opportunity to share a bit of that with you. And yeah, thank you. Have a good evening, everyone. Nanda kumba kumba.
I'd like to hand over now, I think, to Bernie or Simone, who might have the opportunity to tell you a little bit about the transition of Biomes from a physical environment into the virtual environment that we find ourselves in during these COVID times, and possibly profile some of the important artwork that was developed within the School of Creative Industries and in FAST Lab for Biomes. Thank you.
Before we do that, Alex, we actually do have Professor Janet Nelson with us now. So we might ask Janet to do her speech before we speak about it, the creative industries. So Janet, would you like to come on board?
Thank you, Bernadette. Does everyone hear me? Okay, good. I have been on since the beginning. I think I was just an observer instead of a panelist, so we have overcome this challenge. And I just, as I started, I wanted to thank Rob Russell from the Wabakal Local Original Land Council for that beautiful acknowledgement of country. This is one of the joys as I've started to be here in my new home in Australia, that I'd love that we take the time and do this. But I also wanted to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to join this event. I'm not kicking it off, but I am getting a chance to say that I'm very pleased to be here. I know that we all would have liked to have been here in person for the exhibit, but I am very impressed with the way that the team has been able to work together to make this event accessible to all of you this evening. And I'm understanding that it's being recorded as well. And I know that there are always technical difficulties, but it's still just delightful that we're able in this, this environment that our community can respond and pivot and manage the impacts of COVID-19. Being agile, responsive, collaborative is certainly a value for our university, and it's even more critical now than ever. As well as being responsive and collaborative, engaging with our community is really important at this time. And I really am struck at the levels of great, both local and global importance that we're engaging with our community partners. The Biomes exhibition is really focused on an important issue, and in this impact of the human life has on our environment. Going back to COVID as an example, with health, both mental and physical health being so tied tightly with the natural world, is even more important now that we advocate good conservation science and communicate to the wider community. If those of you familiar with the University of Newcastle and our new Looking Ahead strategic plan, sustainability is one of the key values that's embedded throughout this strategic plan. And another key tenet is really the promotion and celebration of multidisciplinary collaborations. And so it's, for me, just wonderful to see these values coming to life through this exhibition, and the way that we learn to break down the traditional barriers between disciplines and bring us together. Combining art and science in such an engaging way, we're really able to present our staff and students' ideas in an accessible way to our community. And as was mentioned a few minutes ago, what better time to come together than National Biodiversity Month, a time to focus on protecting and improving the biodiversity, both within Australia and across the world. So congratulations to everyone involved in the evening event, and thank you for including me.
Thank you, Janet. I think we're now handing over to you, Simone.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Good evening, everyone. On Biomes. So as a designer, I feel that I've got a responsibility to ensure that the design projects that I work on usually have some social, cultural or environmental benefits to others. So it's been a real honour to work with the fantastic artists of Biomes, Electronica, who all share a passion for biodiversity and conservation and the environment. In my role on this project as exhibition designer with a focus on user experiences, the original brief was for a physical exhibition to bring people together in the same physical spaces, particularly after all of us being locked up with COVID, to enable enriching and critical discourse. However, like so many things this year, we still needed to remain COVID safe. And so although we were coming back into a physical space, around about 7 to 8 weeks ago, a decision was made that we needed to take this exhibition online to remain COVID safe. So much of what you see, particularly on the website of things, has been built within less than 8 weeks, which I am very proud of. It's been quite an achievement. And this is due to the team that I've been working with amazing people, transition to a virtual one. And integral to this process, and in addition to my fantastic colleagues from Science and School of Creative Industries at Fast Lab and Psychology, have been our student designers who I'd like to really credit and make sure that people realise that there's people behind the scenes that do a lot of work. And they are Victoria McMaster and Courtney Birch from Bachelor of Visual Communication Design and Jane Lowe from the Bachelor of Creative Industries. And they've been toiling behind the scenes to showcase the work of all our artists and scientists. They're all third-year projects or third-year students, so all three of them have actually been juggling major projects at the same time. But I had the confidence when I asked them to join me on this project. I had the confidence that they could achieve this because I'd worked with each of them over the summer in the School of Creative Industries' own design studio, Studio Z. And that the summer that they worked with me gave them excellent experience for a project such as this one. And they've shown such resilient can-do attitudes, flexibility and positive approaches to what has been pretty awful COVID-19 scope creep. I warned them so much about scope creep and then felt so terribly guilty when that's what I was doing to them in this project. But then again, never before have I worked in a world dominated by a pandemic where there's been so much uncertainty. But with this uncertainty has also come opportunities for collaboration with international partners such as Ars Electronica that wouldn't have occurred in the same way had international borders not been shut down, because this led to a rethink of the distributed delivery of a networked exhibition. So delivered online across websites, Mozilla hubs and a 3D virtual gallery, this exhibition provides us with the opportunity also to interrogate notions of the gallery space, once identified by Brian O'Doherty as elitist. Now these barriers are being broken down. We have audiences interacting with science in a 3D space that's been actually driven by a games engine, which is kind of mass media production. So where does that put the consumption of art? Now that audiences are playing in the gallery, they're engaging in new and compelling ways with something that was once called high art to explore issues of biodiversity and conservation. So COVID-19 has catapulted the rhetoric of the gallery space and user experiences into really interesting places. The multimodal delivery in which our audiences now can access the artworks in this exhibition provide us with a moment to pause and to think about new context in which art is consumed today, and also what it might look like in the future. This provides us with so much scope to communicate key messages about important issues. So although the aesthetics of net art prevail in some of the media artworks in this exhibition, the contexts have changed dramatically and our audiences have come to include much broader groups of people. So as we find physical gatherings and exhibitions changed by the nature of COVID, what does this mean for the ways in which we engage with art and messages that our artists and scientists are conveying? In this collaboration between art, science and technology, I've learned so much about biodiversity and the effects that it has on our lives, our community and our overall survival here on Earth. So thank you so very much to everyone for including me on this fascinating journey. Now I think, though I'm not sure, that I'm going to introduce you to Kristofan Minsky, who's our Ars Electronica partner.
We're just doing some last minute setups here on the stage. Obviously this operation is a little bit technically challenging, as most things are in these COVID times. My name's Christopher Minsky. I'd firstly just like to say a very big thanks to the University of Newcastle, the FAST Lab, the Biomes project team, the many collaborators that have been involved in this project. I'm going to let Horst talk a little bit about the Ars Electronica in the garden in a moment, but just to say briefly, about a month and a half, 2 months ago, Ars Electronica came along to me and asked whether I'd be interested to do a garden. I was in Newcastle, Australia, spending some time here after finishing my PhD. I approached a few people from the University of Newcastle, and very quickly this turned into a really significant project in a significant garden, and I'm incredibly honoured to be part of it, and I'm thrilled to present tonight. Horst, welcome from Austria. I'm just going to make a few quick introductions, and then we'll hear from Horst about the Ars Electronica Festival. So firstly, on the end, Professor Paul Eggleston, Head of School Creative Industries, Education and Arts. Welcome, Paul. In the centre, we have Rewa Wright. Dr. Rewa Wright. Rewa is a lecturer in creative technology in the School of Creative Industries and a member of the FAST Lab. And Professor Mario Minicello, Professor of Design. And Paul and Mario together recently founded the FAST Lab, Centre of Applied Chaos, which they'll also be talking about in a little while. But now to our big guest of honour from Austria, Mr. Horst Hortner. Horst is also an adjunct professor, conjoint professor to the University of Newcastle. He's the founder and director of the Ars Electronica Future Lab and has been in that space since 1996. So welcome, Horst. And I would just like to ask you, Horst, to say a few words about the Ars Electronica, about the garden, and of course your thoughts on the Newcastle garden that we've created here.
We can't hear you, Horst. You seem to have no sound there.
That's great. I just lost Horst.
Horst, we can't hear you.
Just lost him. We can't hear him on Zoom.
Excuse me, Horst, sorry to interrupt you, but we can't actually hear you. Would you be able to fix your volume?
Thinking they can hear him in the studio, but not here on Zoom. Christopher, in the studio there, we can't hear Horst at all on Zoom.
We have a little bit of a problem with our local transmission. We're, of course, going to be repeating a lot of this same material as part of another opening next week. So for our local audience, just to let you know, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. It's a big technical challenge that we're dealing here at the moment because of the technology and the link up to Austria. But that will all be basically refined next week. And in the meantime, we'll try and get audio back to Horst. But Horst, I believe you're hearing me still loud and clear?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So I might just summarize. Horst just basically gave Newcastle and our garden an extremely big rap in the context of, as we know, what is now 120 different gardens participating all over the world. Thanks a lot for those kind words, Horst. I'm going to reiterate more of what you were talking about later in the panel. But you've already covered off, I think, where I would like to just go now briefly, because you spoke a lot about this idea of Ars Electronica. And as I've also known for many years, working there myself, when we talk about the future ecology, and what I've understood from my work at Ars Electronica is this idea of an ecosystem also around art, technology, society. And what's excited me a lot about this event and being part of this collaboration here in Newcastle, and particularly what I'm seeing with the FAST Lab, how quickly this collaboration came from the different parts of the university, is that there seems to be a real thirst and a desire for this exact exact kind of mindset as well moving into the future. So I think I might just like to start with you, Paul, to see if you could respond to that statement and tell us a little bit about what the university and the FAST Lab in the city of Newcastle is up to.
Yeah, thank you, Christopher. Yeah, we a couple of years ago decided that there were some real opportunities in those liminal spaces between art, science, and technology to really kind of explore what humanness was about in that environment and in that landscape. That's where technology is not just all around us or we're immersed in it. It's an extension quite often of our personalities, through our mobile phones or even the kind of vehicles that we drive. But it doesn't end there. So the notion of a future focused and a future facing sense of where technology could take us next, and what that would then say about us as human beings or our humanness, seemed to be an appropriate thing for a School of Creative Industries to be the catalyst, bringing together, the scientists and the technologists and experts in those other fields as well, and find new forms of expression and explore areas like robotics and artificial intelligence and making meaning out of new forms of digital content, which is what clearly then draws us to organisations like Ars Electronica, who've been doing that really successfully, and also fueling that public discourse around what all this stuff means when we put it out there in society. So that's really why we formed FAST Lab as part of the school.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Horst, I believe we've got you back on the line now. I might just do a quick audio check and get the confirmation from our studio. Could you?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Have we got? Great, Horst. So we've got you back now through the Zoom. Rather than get you repeat what you just mentioned before, I think if you could just briefly respond to some of the things Paul was just talking about, and especially in terms of this idea, I think, of where you see the role of art and how that's been handled within the Ars Electronica space. Often we hear things around art being a tool to communicate science, but I think you've got a very much deeper impression, interpretation on that. And if you could say a few words, I'd then like to throw over to Rewa, who's also working in that space.
Thank you, Christopher. This is, as you know, this is my most beloved topic, so I try to be very short in my answer. I think that art really reflects on the contemporary environments since art has started, really. And whereas science, though, is giving us, or science is creating knowledge, technology is creating possibilities, but art's the only one who's creating the meaning. And I think that it is so important, drastically important for the individual, but also for the entire society to understand the meaning of cutting edge society, the meaning of the one or the other technological, whatever trend in our society. Where does it lead to? And we need art more or less as something like the second opinion. We need artists to express and reflect on our society more than ever. And in this perspective, especially towards our future, we would all agree that those challenging topics, climate change, name it, migration flows, all those would not be able to be solved from within one discipline. We need to transdisciplinarity, start research fields that would go across all the disciplines. But even if our academic environment is succeeding in breaking the borders between faculties, we still would miss out the communication to the rest of the 8 billion people that we need to join in order to focus those challenges ahead of us. And especially in this role, it is so important to have somebody explaining, or it's not about explanation, it's about giving access to, making it tangible for an untrained audience, giving access to cutting edge technologies, giving access to cutting edge scientific outcomes on a level that allows to experience the meaning and not reading a paper about. And I think in this communication that is drastically needed in order to take big challenges, art and the process of art, the artistic thinking, is a very, very valuable instrument, a very, very valuable set of tools and methodologies that should be incorporated in those vision generating approaches that almost every discipline at the moment is having. We don't I have the feeling we don't have a lack of plans or a lack of solutions, but we do have a lack of visions. And I think that what a vision is about is bringing different mindsets together to try to follow the red line towards that utopia. And utopia isn't a bad word at all. I think well, there was a politician here in Europe saying, whoever has visions needs a doctor. And this is totally the opposite of what I think. If we want to move towards a joint global community that we have here as an experimental setting already with the Ars Electronica now in 120 countries, if we want to foster the input from all different communities and on all different level of educations, it is all about to have a joint vision in order to move towards a probably not even one solution. It's, I'm very, very sure, thousands of solutions, potentially 8 billion of solutions, but it's worthwhile to get that started. And art is, I think, a very, very strong player, could be a very, very strong player in that field of vision generating.
If I could ask Rewa to respond to that and also speak a little bit about your fantastic garden that you've been building yourself, her own garden at one of the Mozilla hubs, and just to explain a little bit to the local audience, and then we'll finalize the discussion with our international viewers.
Okay, well, receiving the invitation from Christopher to participate in this incredible future ecology was probably the most exciting thing that happened at FastLab this month. We've really thrown all our researchers into it. We have artists, we have scientists we're collaborating with, we're also technologists, we build a lot of our own software, and we make all of our own technology art. For me, media art is the barometer of the people. It's something that you can use to take the temperature of society. So it was a very exciting thought that we might be able to create this hub's extended reality room where we could have participatory experiences with people from communities who we would never get to meet face to face. In this COVID reality where we need to try to connect up with people in a way that it does not involve face-to-face contact, it seemed like such a beautiful solution where we can try to enhance our own community at a local level in Newcastle, but also reach our ideas out to the rest of the world. So it's been a privilege to me to work with the team that I'm in FastLab. I have Nicole Carroll, who's a woman doing a lot in the bioacoustic space, John Drummond, Adam Manning, Amelia Besson, Hugh Jones, Alison Bennett from RMIT, who's actually one of the leading women in Australia in the extended reality space. And also Jakali Romanis, who's a Pita woman, Indigenous woman from Queensland. We've actually created a decolonized space for her. She has her own WebXR room linked into our hub. So it's going to be a fantastic opportunity for us to share our experimental performances with the world. We're primarily sound and visual artists, so we're going to be inviting people into the hub's room as part of this future ecology concept. And we look forward to meeting everybody there.
Thanks very much, Rewa. And I think Rewa's project in particular is a great example of how this Ars Electronica garden has created a kind of a glue, and not only to bind all these countries from across Europe, but also locally here very quickly. a whole lot of other collaborators from across Australia that have been involved and supported the initiative. I'd just like to hear from Mario, because you mentioned something before, Horst, and I've talked a bit to Mario about this as well. I think there's some similar ideas. You were talking about an open and accessible transdisciplinary education and society, and it resonates very well with some of the conversations we've had, Mario, and you've talked about this concept of things like the living lab. If you could just say a few words on that concept.
Look, I think through technology and through these interactions and international interactions, we're actually getting closer to the problem first posited by C.P. Snow about those two great worlds, the sciences and the arts, and how we bring them together. And also Horst Rittel, who first raised the idea of a wicked problem, which is a multimodal problem requiring transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary work. And just this notion that somehow we are the servant, that creativity and creative people serve something. We actually serve a broader thing than just one narrow subject area. So absolutely, knowledge is definitely about knowing your facts. It is about having your skills, but it's also about creating an object of some description. That is your classic epistemology, if you like. But creativity is really about being able to engage in thought and then acting on it. You may be a very creative person, but you may not have any creativity if you are not able to engage in making. And what I like here is that we've taken all of those pots, all of those beautiful deep wells, and we've drawn bits from that. But in the end, we've made something. And to make something is to take a risk in the world, because it may fail. More and more, we want to put measures against ourselves where everything is known. And therefore, I'm not sure how creatives can actually exist in a world that actually wants to be bounded by certainty. What really is happening is we're actually driven by uncertainty, hence the title, The Center of Applied Chaos. And we very much look forward to working with you guys into the future and to Ars Electronica, because you're very much the poetry to the prose of both science and the intermittent prose and poetry of technology. But definitely you represent a really poetic rendering of the future. So we are very excited to be working with you. And FastLab will definitely be a good partner into the future. And thank you so much for working with us.
Thanks, Mario, and thanks a lot for the whole panel. Sorry, we've run a little bit out of time. I'd just like to maybe ask you, Horst, for some closing remarks before you get back to what's no doubt a very busy day for the next week. And also thanks again for your participation.
Well, thank you again. Thanks for having me. And really, and I say it from the bottom of our hearts, it's a big, big thank you to your initiative there in Newcastle, and to be ready to cooperate in this chaotic experiment that this entire Global Ars Electronica will look like. I'm very much looking forward to all the different inputs and contributions to the live channel that with 4 live channels that are going to be set up. Thank you so much of being such a valuable, incredible, invaluable partner for us from Australia. Thanks a lot. And yes, it's super great to hear that there's even interest to further collaborations. I'm in. Very happy to hear that. Thanks a lot. See you guys.
Thanks, Horst, and thanks everybody. And we look forward to checking out more of the Ars Electronica Garden online, and starting now with Reiwa's Mozilla Hub, which is about to open and go live. Thank you very much.